Welcome to Frank Mir birthday week, everybody.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah. Happy birthday early by a few days, Frank.
I'm going to be 39.
All right. Last year, your 30s.
Last year, my 30s.
Yeah. Let's make it a good one. What do you say?
Let's try to make them all good, but yeah.
What do you got planned for the week?
I don't really have anything planned. I'm not really big on birthdays, man.
Yeah?
No. I think the wife, she said something about going down to one of the restaurants we like to go to.
Okay.
The Cuban restaurant over there off the strip.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, the one over by the Stratosphere.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably go there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, go smoke cigars.
Mm-hmm.
Once it gets later and the kids have to go to bed.
Mm-hmm. What does somebody get Frank Mir for his birthday? What do you want? You want me to upgrade your status on Clash of Clans or whatever you're doing there on your phone?
Gift card for
get you some birthday armor.
Yeah, with some points.
Yeah, do people wear armor in Clash of Clans?
No, you can get gems though. So
yeah, get you a new loincloth. All right, hey, if you're planning to wear a loincloth around this summer, you need to go to lowtnation.com first. How's that for a segue?
That was a good segue.
All right. Summer is nigh upon us, and you got to get your summer body looking good. And, hey, if you are in the last year of your 30s, maybe you're already into your 40s, like some people here at this table, then lowtnation.com is a place on the internet that you need to visit right this second while you're listening to Frank and I talk. What's that all about? Well, just go to the website, lowtnation.com. Call the toll-free number. The other end of the line will be answered by a couple of good phone booth fighting listeners, just like yourselves. And what they're doing is they are turning back the sands of time. They will put you in touch with a local lab in your area. It doesn't matter where you are located throughout the United States. They will help you set up an appointment for some preliminary testing to make sure that you are a candidate for their treatment, and then they take it from there. You don't even have to set foot outside your front door, really. It's really nothing more than when you pick up your Amazon packages before the porch pirates come to get them. It's going to be the same deal with lowtnation.com. Now, that's the layman's overview, Frank, but as always, you can help fill out the spot here with a little scientific point of view.
Scientific point of view. Yeah, I mean, basically you laid it all out there. You go down there to any of the, you give them a call there at Weeks and Dr. Weeks and Brandon. They'll talk you through, see if you're someone who's a candidate. If you are, you go down and get your blood work done at any of the lab cores in every state. At that point, they'll look at it and evaluate it with a physician, and they'll prescribe you any medication that's needed and get your levels up to where you need to be at, so you're feeling well and you're able to actually get a lot of results out of your hard work.
We hear from our male phone booth fighting listeners all the time. We love our ladies, but there's a lot of dudes, not surprisingly, that subscribe to phoneboothfighting.com. And there's a lot of dudes who are falling in that age bracket and need the help, need the extra boost to get those testosterone levels back up to where they're supposed to be. That's where Low T Nation comes in. LowTNation.com is the website. The toll-free number is right there on the front. Give them a call. They'll take it from there. We hear from more and more phone booth fighting listeners every week who are more than satisfied with the experience that they're having there, and it really is giving them a whole new lease on life. So check it out, lowtnation.com, and tell them Frank and Richard from Phone Booth Fighting sent you. This episode, Frank, is also brought to you by Ellefson Coffee, EllefsonCoffeeCo.com. My buddy Dave Ellefson from Megadeth has himself a coffee roasting company with a rock and roll theme. Roasts such as Roast in Peace, that's a play on a Megadeth record there a lot of people will recognize. The Rockin' Rosé, Urban Legend, Kenya Thrash that you're a big fan of, the Jackson House Blend, the band Queensryche has their own roast, the band Autograph has their own roast. I was actually with Rikki Rockett of Poison this weekend. I was thinking we need to put him in touch with Dave Ellefson and have him roast some rocket fuel. That name is just made for a good coffee roast.
Yeah, Rikki Rockett does have a phenomenal name for that.
Yes, so see if we can put those two in touch. But for now, you go to EllefsonCoffeeCo.com. Use the promo code PhoneBooth. You're going to save 10% off your order at checkout. Load up. Whatever you're getting, 10% off at checkout if you use the promo code Phone Booth. That offer is exclusive to Phone Booth Fighting listeners. Dave Ellefson is a Hard Rock legend. He's also a real great guy. So you're not only supporting our show, but you're supporting a good dude in Dave Ellefson, who actually has the follow-up to his original autobiography coming out, I think, later this year. So we'll have to have him on very soon to talk about that. Once again, the website, ellefsoncoffeeco.com, ELLEFSON, coffeeco.com, promo code Phone Booth to save 10% off at checkout. All right, Frank, so here's what we're going to do on this show. Now, you have returned from the UK.
I'm back.
You were in England this past weekend. Now, a lot of people, I think, were surprised. They probably assumed you were over there for some ACB MMA duties, which you were in part. But I think a lot of people were surprised who got up early and tuned into the royal wedding to see you walking Meghan Markle down the aisle. Now, this was there was a lot of controversy surrounding this. Not the choice of you, but I guess her father was not going to attend, and then he was, but then he had a medical emergency, so he couldn't attend, and then there was talk of Prince Charles doing it, and then somebody said, well, wait a second, if Meghan's dad isn't going to walk her down the aisle, then they should at least have Prince Harry's dad walk her down the aisle, and he wasn't even invited, so they said never mind on that, and we won't have Prince Charles do it either. And so somehow...
Prince Harry's...
that's a horse trainer joke. You never heard that? You ever seen a picture of Princess Diana's horse trainer? Looks a lot like Prince Harry.
No, not the horse trainer. The captain, right?
I thought that's what he was.
No, he was in the military. He's not the horse trainer.
Yeah, but he has something to do with horses.
Did he have something to do with horses?
Yeah.
I thought he was a military guy.
Well, I think he was that too, but I think he was like the royal captain of the horses or something.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
I think. If we're talking about the same, we're definitely talking about the same guy.
Yeah, the redhead guy too. I've seen the pictures
Yeah.
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 It's kinda hard. Yeah, no, I've seen it.
Yeah, so he wasn't invited. So anyway, I don't know how many.
I would have got the joke, but then when you put the horse thing, I was like, what?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mixing up my my Princess Di rumors there, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
That shit, so
yeah. While you're looking it up, I'll just push forward with the primary premise of my bit here, which was that I don't know how many people you went through or how many people they went through asking before they ended up with you, but it was exciting to see a part of that early Saturday morning, and then you wrapped up the whole thing in time to get to Nottingham to do your normal ACB duties. So you were all over the UK this weekend.
I like Nottingham.
Yeah.
I like UK.
Yeah.
Manchester area.
Is that anywhere close to London? I don't really know my geography over there.
2.5, 3 hours.
Everything is amazingly
North.
close in some of those countries.
Well, I think you can get from the north side of England to the south in about 5 hours.
That's pretty crazy, right? Yeah, I remember the first time I went over to Scandinavia, I was just blown away at how like you could get across 2 countries in a day sometimes over there, maybe even more depending on where you were. James Hewitt, that was his name. Now, was he the horse trainer or did he
trying to figure out.
serve some other role? Okay, you are right about James Hewitt. Yep. By the way, did you see the original reason that the dad didn't attend? The heart surgery was the second excuse he came up with.
I thought he had like major surgery.
No, well, maybe he did. That's the word. But the first thing that happened was he took money from some paparazzi to stage some tabloid pictures. So he staged pictures of like they shot him from long range, but he was sitting at like a table in a cafe reading a book on like royal wedding etiquette or something. Then they took another picture where it appeared that he was getting measured for a tuxedo, but it was all staged.
Oh, really?
Like he took the money from him. Yeah.
He was in the military as a cavalry.
Okay. There's your horses.
There's the horses.
Okay. Was something about Princess Di's horse trainer?
Yeah, no, I can't find that part.
I hope. Boy, my accuracy's on the line here.
No, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm just looking at Wikipedia.
Yeah.
He rose to prominence in the mid-1990s after a disclosed romantic affair he had with with Diana, Princess of Wales, while she's still the wife of the heir apparent to the throne of the United Kingdom, Prince Charles.
Yes. There you go.
He was a cavalry officer in the British Army.
Okay.
So I don't know when he retired.
Well, he's been on a horse. That's obvious.
Well, he was actually in the military all the way till 94.
Okay.
So he was still a cavalry officer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where the horse thing came from. So you're right.
All right.
I don't know if he was in charge of the horses but maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they do. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll see if we get him on the podcast at some point. I don't know what he's got going on these days if he's retired.
Yeah, because you think that there probably has to be some truth to that because it's easily squelched with a DNA test.
Yeah, I know.
And if they haven't, because then for you and I to have this conversation and sit there and go, rumors were until the DNA test proved.
Right. That's what we should have given. I didn't check Megan and Harry's registry, but Phone Booth Fighting should have sent them matching 23andme.com kits. Yeah. I would have created an awkward moment.
Because if you think about it, even the brothers don't really look anything alike.
No.
Right? No. Pretty drastically different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, while you were doing that, I was having a rock and roll good time with Poison. Turns out we didn't need nothing but a good time this weekend at the Hard Rock Casino here in Las Vegas. And Poison played what appeared to be a sold-out show there. They packed that place with the amazing, legendary Cheap Trick opening. So the original plan was that Poison was going to go on about, I think they went on about 9 o'clock or so. And Rikki Rockett, the drummer of Poison, who is our buddy, he's been on the show before, a jiu-jitsu black belt, and a very interesting guy, had invited, the plan, he invited both of us, but we knew ahead of time you were going to be in England. So he invited me to the show, and we're going to set up in his dressing room and do an episode of Phone Booth Fighting, which we did, and you're going to hear that here in just a little bit. The segment, it's a good lengthy segment that we did, talking some rock and roll, but really talking a whole lot of jiu-jitsu. The original plan was that the timing was going to coincide with the time difference over in the UK, that just about the time you were finishing ACB, that would be about the time we were sitting down to do the interview. So we had the whole thing set up, lights, camera, mics, everything in Poison's dressing room. It was crazy, too. Everybody in Poison has their own dressing room. So Ricky's dressing room was right across the hallway from Brett Michaels' dressing room. So as we're waiting to get you on Skype, because we had an iPad set up right in the middle between us, and you were going to come on the iPad via FaceTime, I was watching Brett Michaels on his exercise bike in his dressing room. Like he's over there getting warmed up for the show.
Really?
So, yeah, door was open. He's over there. It's funny. Poison, in the 80s, no band got more pussy than Poison. Like none got more. Like it was because they had a huge female following. And to be honest, like when bands like Metallica came along and Slayer and those kind of bands, that's all dudes, right? And then there were some bands that drew both, but Poison was like, that's where you went to get laid if you were a dude that looked like me in the 80s. Because the thing is, those four guys, first of all, could only handle so much that night. Yeah. Secondly, they were leaving town the next day. These girls were sticking around. They were from your hometown. So, the pond was stocked. You know what I'm saying? So back in the 80s, those dressing rooms were just a crazy scene.
I wonder how many kids in their 30s owe it to
I know. Well, the funny thing is nowadays the dressing rooms, each guy's got their own dressing room, and it's like, it's like exercise bikes and masseuses and kids of their own running around. Yeah. It's very family
herbal
oriented.
Tea instead of vodka and Coke.
All that. So the plan was that Rikki and I were going to get you on FaceTime, and we're going to do basically a show, half a show anyway. And so Rikki and I still did it. We got you on FaceTime for a second, but you would run into some logistical problems because just as you were getting done, there was a lot of post-production stuff going on with ACB, right?
Yeah, a lot more stuff to take care of than I thought of.
Yeah, okay. So what you're going to see, Frank and I are going to do this first part of the show, and then we're going to go back a couple of days in time. And the second half of the show will be myself and Rikki Rockett in Poison's dressing room. So if you're watching on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Phone Booth Fighting, and you want to see inside the dressing room and all that kind of stuff, then you'll be able to see it. And then at the very end of the show, I'm going to go back a couple of days further than that in time to a phone conversation I had with Cody Garbrandt. Cody's got a book out about, do you know this story, Frank, about this young man that
Vaguely.
had leukemia, I believe it was?
I know that I saw him first when he won the title.
Yep.
The kid that he had.
Kid from his hometown. And this kid was 5 years old when he met Cody Garbrandt. They go back 7 years, something like that. I mean, this wasn't even something that just happened within the last year. It wasn't like just where like Make-A-Wish reached out or something like that. This was somebody from Cody's hometown that he's been friends with now. Maddox is the young man's name. He's been friends with him for like 7 years, and they got to be friends before Cody was even in the UFC. So this whole bond that they've had together where, Cody's saying, hey, you fight this, this cancer, and I'm going to, fight to get to be UFC champion. It went on for a lot longer than a lot of people realize. So Cody's got a new book out about it called The Pact. And, of course, everybody knows the story. Cody went on to win the UFC bantamweight title, and Maddox was there in the cage to accept it for him. But I really got to go more in depth on this story than I really knew about before I talked to Cody. So you'll hear that interview at the end of the show. So it's Frank and I for the first half, Rikki Rockett of Poison, and myself inside Poison's dressing room for the second part, and then at the very end we'll do that conversation that I had with Cody Garbrandt. So we're going to bounce around and cover a lot of ground. I will tell you this quick story. First of all, I want to tell you this though, Frank, while I have you here. Rikki, he's a big Frank Mir fan. So he was bummed that we had the logistical problems and couldn't get you on. But he said he extended you and I an invitation. I think Poison's tour goes through July or something, and he said after that, if you and I can get to L.A., we can just come to his house, and he's got a home studio there and everything, and just set up and do something there. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Great guy, and it was very cool of him to have us out. He did have one very cool rock and roll move that I witnessed. So we're getting ready to do the interview, and he hadn't gone into hair and makeup and all that kind of stuff yet, for the show. So he goes, I think we had a shower today. He's like, maybe I should wear a hat. So he puts out the call that he'll probably need to put on a hat, and he's got a guy, and the guy disappears, and he reappears with a big road case that's got a whole selection of hats in it. So Rikki and they're all crazy hats, like a top hat and a pilot's hat and a bowler hat and all these crazy hats. And he goes through the collection, he tries on some different hats, and then he goes, yeah, I don't think I'm going to wear a hat. And the guy collects all the hats, and he puts them back in the case, and he disappears again and puts them back on the bus. I think that's a pretty cool move. When you got a guy who's just kind of always at the, I should probably put on a hat. I'll be right back. And he comes with the whole selection.
Just come back with a baseball cap.
Yeah.
A trunk full of hats.
Exactly. Yeah, they were all unique in their own way. All right, let's talk some MMA. First of all, let's look ahead to this weekend because your promotion, Bellator, has a big bicentennial event happening in London this weekend. It's Bellator 200. It's a big number for them. Now, this big event has lost their main event. Mirko Cro Cop is hurt. He's got I believe it's a knee injury. And so Roy Nelson needs an opponent. Now, I'll tell you, the first thing I thought of was, boy, if Scott Coker gets wind that Frank Mir is over there in the UK, he may try to hide his passport or something like that.
The thought crossed my mind.
Yeah?
I was already on the plane when I found out what was going on.
Yeah. So nobody called you about it or anything?
No, I'd already landed home.
Yeah. I mean, I would think... Well, on the one hand, I would think they would want time to promote that, but then again, they already had it positioned as a big main event. They probably would have, if they could have somehow worked that out, I'll bet they would have loved to have had you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, especially a rematch with Roy Nelson. I mean, that's something you or Nelson and Cro Cop eventually. I mean, there's beyond the tournament, there's some compelling fights to make for you over there in Bellator, especially with guys that you've already got wins over.
Yeah. Absolutely. And guys I've yet to fight too. So
yeah, No, I was wondering if you were going to get that call, but you got out of the UK apparently before they had a chance. So last I heard, they're still looking for an opponent for Roy. I don't know who it's going to be, but if they do find somebody for him, they have moved that fight out of the main event, and now Mousasi and Carvalho will be the main event. That's going to be for the middleweight title. That'll get elevated, and then Michael Venom Page and David Rickles will become the co-main event. Carvalho as a middleweight champ, you know, for all the marquee names that are over there in Bellator, that's a guy who I think doesn't get quite the credit he deserves, and Mousasi's always a tough fight.
Yeah, Mousasi is always somebody's in the top 5, 10 of everybody's category, I think. Just well-rounded, you know, great kickboxer that has a good grappling background too.
He might have been one of the first guys that I think, you know, in terms of when you saw that Bellator was starting to pick these guys up who were still in their prime as free agent recruits, he's one of the ones that to me maybe made the most sense to go over there, where he could.
Well, I think he was ranked 5th at that point. Wasn't he coming off of a win over Weidman too?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean that was a big up and coming, you know, guy. Where, you know, some of the other guys you could say are like, you know, have won titles and are on the other side of it now, whereas he's definitely was still on the up.
Yeah. Now, Bellator will have some competition over there because in Liverpool, the UFC is doing a card that is going to be main evented by the undefeated Darren Till. This is the guy who is coming off a win over Cowboy Cerrone, a big finish of a very tough opponent in him. He's going to be taking on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Now, this fight, I mean, is, boy, a battle on the feet that to me goes one of two ways. Either could turn into a war from the outset if these guys really want to engage, or it could end up being a very cautious battle. Sometimes when you get guys whose skills, you know, kind of cancel each other out a little bit, they can be a little hesitant at first, huh?
You know, Wonderboy is a phenomenal striker, and I appreciate what he does, but I think he has the potential to always make a fight not look great because of his movement and the way he's able to, you know, I mean, against Jorge Masvidal, who's known as a gritty warrior. I mean, right now, if you told me that Till and Masvidal were fighting each other, I would think that's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah.
You know, crazy two guys just going head to head and trying to kill each other. But as aggressive and as explosive as Till is, you know, Wonderboy could use his footwork to really make it, you know, difficult to have that kind of barn burner match. He either catches you and knocks you out with, you know, some kind of kick in a highlight fashion, or not. You know what I mean? There's kind of only two ways that Wonderboy's fights kind of work out. He either catches you with a spin kick or that hook kick off his leg, and he can get a knockout, or he dances around and outpoints you and looking for that shot. And so, you know, I don't know. As far as a 5-round brawl, you know, a barn burner type fight, he's just, you know, he's almost kind of like that really phenomenal wrestler. You know, he's kind of like the striking version of John Fitch. You know, John Fitch is a very efficient grappler, but his style was not necessarily favorable towards creating, you know, great fights, but he beat a lot of people, and that's how, you know, Wonderboy is. He's beaten everybody except for, you know, the champ. And those fights too, you know, if he ends up beating Till, it's like you almost have a situation where you have this guy, if you don't want him to be your gatekeeper because he can knock everybody off, and then I don't think people are really eager to see a third Woodley Thompson fight, right?
No.
But I mean, if you put all the best competition first and they have to get through Wonderboy and he gets to keep the #1 moniker, that
may be what you get. That is kind of, but that's assuming you get Tyron Woodley back in there, you know, sooner than later. But yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, he's going to knock out 2 or 3 of your top guys while Woodley's shoulders healing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now when Woodley comes back, the only one standing and the dust clears is Thompson.
Yeah,
again.
Thompson hadn't moved. You mentioned footwork. Now, how important is something like that when you're game planning for a striker like Till? Because Till's a southpaw, so he's got a disproportionate amount of power coming from one side, whereas Thompson has the ability to constantly switch stances and things like that, to almost be ambidextrous in his defense.
Yeah. The thing that the cage has done, and people have only caught on to it for the last couple of years now, is that predominantly your hardcore full contact striking arts happen within a boxing ring, right? So boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, K1, all occur in a boxing ring. It's hard to run away from somebody. It's hard to move. Machida would not do very well in a boxing ring because he couldn't run in a circle away from somebody because they could just step left, step right. It's much easier to cut somebody off when the ropes have those corners. Because then if, I could strafe 2 or 3 feet to my right, strafe 2 or 3 feet to my left. Even look at Mayweather, who's probably the greatest evasive defensive fighter of all time in boxing. He still has to shield and hide up against the ropes because he can't dance the whole time because people can catch him. Whereas the circular nature of the cage, it's hard to corner people. So these guys like Till, who, if this was in a boxing ring, I would really I'm like, hey, you know what? I think he actually has a little bit of the edge. But when it's in a circle, the footwork, the karate style open mat work type, dance around, hit you, dance out of it, is much more effective. It wouldn't work very well in a boxing ring in a smaller area because they get cut off. But in the octagon or in the cage, especially in Bellator's circle, it's even more of a striker movement favorable. It is difficult. You can't really corner somebody off by striking with them. You have to actually engage and grapple with them if you want to cut them off.
You can't corner somebody without a corner.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's no corners inside there. The little corner on the octagon, it is what it is. But if you want to slow somebody down, that's why Machidas of the world, Anderson Silva, their movement and their footwork works so well. And Thompson, he's able to dance around, and it's hard to get to them. And then they fire punches from long range or strikes from long range and then get out. And they're not consumed with, and that's the one thing that Thompson does a great job with. He's not consumed with trying to knock you out. He just wants to hit you. So he's like, all right, if I put my knuckles on your chin or I put them into your rib cage, if I put the heel of my foot on your face and I don't get hit back and I move out of the way, I'm winning. And if amongst that, one of these shots hit a vital area, I catch you behind the ear, right on the chin, spin your head, or catch you in the solar plexus, and one of these shots drop you, I'll take it. But they're not looking for it, and so and then in his mindset, if I hit you 1 or 2, 3 times and I jump out of here, I'm winning, and he's right. That goes on the scoring criteria. He's winning.
Bad news for Fabricio Werdum today.
I just heard about this.
He got word that he is the latest to be flagged by USADA for a potential violation. We don't know any real details on that yet, but I think we kind of know the general direction this stuff goes. And even for those who eventually are able to prove some sort of mitigating circumstance, it's a lot of expense and a lot of time.
I think they need to change something. Like, okay, look, Barnett came off as innocent, McMeans or Tim Means, Yoel Romero. All these guys are coming back after being told that something's wrong. And it's kind of like, these drug cases are essentially the same as, a rape case. Once your name is brought into that light, you're never going to get out of it, Sagano, Junior Dos Santos flagged and then was told, and very quietly was told that, okay, it was a mistake or, and we dropped it, right? I think they need to just say somehow someone's injured, call it an injury, and wait till it plays out that the guy is really honestly guilty before they release this information. Because it seems like a lot of the time, more often, maybe I'm just paying more attention to their misfires. They're tagging guys that are innocent. You're already screwed because you're being suspended for the amount of time until you're proven innocent. But then now it's like, oh yeah, we made a mistake. It was in their supplement or it was a test or whatever the fuck they come up with. But that whole time they had to live with that stigma. And guess what? There are fans that are never, ever going to consider that well, Yoel Romero really wasn't taking anything. Oh, yeah, he was. They just figured out a loophole. Like,
or that, and you wonder how many fans really follow it so closely that over that period of time, they're going to recognize the distinction between those who were eventually exonerated and those who weren't. You know, like that whole thing, it just gets blurry. The whole thing gets mixed. You know, you're not remembering this guy's
because
case
I think even
versus
right now,
that
when I said
guy's
Junior
case.
Dos Santos, were you able to remember?
Not the outcome. I remember that he got flagged. I couldn't have told you right off the top of my head what came of it.
Didn't he get released? Because he got flagged before he fought for the title.
Released?
Not released. He got
exonerated.
Exonerated.
Yeah.
Had to have, right? Because he got flagged before he fought Stipe. Yeah. See, look at us.
I know. All right, hold on. I'll get. Don't worry, Junior. I'll get to the bottom of it.
But yeah, there you go. We don't even fucking know.
Yeah. Well, this is
and you're more in the know than most.
This is bad news on several levels for Fabricio Werdum, certainly the obvious. But the other part of this is, he had his next fight expected to be in Moscow, taking on the surging Alexei Olynyk. And Werdum, before he lost to Volkov, had been on a 2-fight win streak. Let me tell you something. This Alexei Olynyk, did you see
Ezekiel, right?
Oh, he did it again. Yeah. Do you know he did that again last weekend against Junior Albini?
That's somebody, if I run into him, I'm like, dude, put it on me, man. I got to feel this.
Yeah.
What are you doing differently the rest of us aren't?
All right. Just while I'm trying to clear Junior Dos Santos' good name, Frank, explain to everybody why the Ezekiel choke is so unusual. First of all, out of a gi, and then secondly, in MMA, and most of the time hitting it from the bottom the way the guy does.
Yeah, he's even done it when he's been mounted.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Ezekiel choke, usually you have to put your thumb or your 4 fingers inside of your sleeve, and then you wrap the neck and you put your hand on the other side of the carotid artery, and then you push the person away. And as you extend your arms, you basically are karate chopping, and you're anchored around their neck, holding on to your sleeve into it. You can push off and do that with a gi, but somehow he's grabbing onto his own wrist. Or I don't know if he's putting a thumb inside his glove. I can't quite gather.
Surely. Well, now wait. Would it be illegal for him to put a thumb in his own glove?
I don't think so.
I mean, I can't do it to your gloves.
Yeah, it's just like shorts. You can grab your own shorts.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never heard anybody. Well, first of all, no one's called him on it if it is illegal, and it's happened enough times now. You'd think some ref would have noticed.
Yeah, I've heard the referee. Next time I see Herb or if I talk to John, I'll ask him. I've never heard a referee say, "Get your thumb out of your own glove."
Yeah.
Now I've heard of guys while they're hand fighting. You can't stick your thumbs or your fingers inside the other guy's glove.
Right.
I know that's. I'm 100% positive that's a no-no.
Yeah. By the way, you are correct that Junior Dos Santos was exonerated of USADA fouls. He was supposed to fight Francis Ngannou back in September, and then he got flagged in August, so he got pulled from that fight. But on April 24th of this year, so just a month ago, he was cleared of intentionally using any PEDs, so he is eligible for he's eligible to compete immediately as of April 24th. So,
what is this intentional?
Probably that's got to be a supplement thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's got to be a that would be my guess on.
So
that.
Another supplement took money away from him again, time off his career.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a tough break for back to Werdum though. If he misses out on that Moscow fight. Boy, the UFC's finally going to Moscow.
Yeah, and also, too, I mean, doesn't he do a lot of commentary work, doesn't he?
Yeah, you're right, he does.
Can't do any commentary work.
Yeah, that's true.
I know that firsthand.
Man. Well, I guess hopefully for Fabricio Werdum, maybe this will eventually be cleared up. But like you said, not without a price to pay just from the standpoint of
it's expensive.
Yeah, just from the standpoint of the cost and the time involved.
It costs so much money.
Yeah.
Lawyer fees and testing supplements.
Yeah. Well, Frank, are you hearing anything around the Bellator water cooler about whether or not the promotion is interested in signing Yair Rodriguez? Because guess what? He's available. Did you hear about this? Yair Rodriguez cut by the UFC
because he denied a fight with Magomed.
He got cut first. This according to Dana White. First, he turned down a fight with Ricardo Lamas, and then he turned down a fight with Zabit.
Oh, okay.
The featherweight Zabit that everybody's excited about. That came over from ACB. Was the ACB featherweight champion. Yeah. So now Rodriguez said that that's not what happened. He told MMA Hour that he accepted a fight with Lamas, but Lamas had decided to fight Mirsad Bektik instead. And then when they wanted him to fight Zabit Magomed Sharipov, he asked for they asked him to do it on August 4th in L.A., and he said he wanted either more money then or he would fight him for the existing price that he fights for if they put him on the Moscow card on September 15th. And according to Yair, the UFC didn't want either one of those options. I guess they wanted him to fight sooner. I don't know. What do you think?
I never heard anybody getting cut for that before. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially a talented guy like Yair.
Yeah. I mean, of course, a lot of people are saying, well, what about Conor? What about what about Nick Diaz? Well, okay, but Conor's Conor. And for that matter,
Conor's in a category, all by himself.
And for that matter, the Diaz's are big draws. And they, I said Nick. Nate is, of course, Nick's been offered fights too, but Nate is the one that I meant to specifically reference. But still,
but lots of fighters turn down fights all the time.
Yeah, and Yair he's got a lot going for him. I mean, he just got he just got knocked back a step maybe by Frankie Edgar, but still take that fight away. And you're talking about not only a dynamo, but a young guy.
Dynamic fighter who's Mexican, so you have that going for you. I mean, every time you have a fighter from a certain area, you're going to draw from that fan base. Yeah, that's a crazy release.
He's got to go to Bellator, right?
Yeah, and he's so young. I mean, he's not even close to his 30s, is he?
I think he's in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
But I think he's like 25, something like that. But yeah, I mean, just the idea of 25 years old, 10-2, and 6-1 in the UFC. So his only UFC loss had come to Frankie Edgar. So prior to that, he had won 6 fights straight in the UFC. I mean, it's so unusual.
One of the best in the world.
Yeah, it's so weird, unusual for a guy like that to come available immediately. I mean, you talk about an out-and-out release. I mean, I wouldn't think. Would you think under those circumstances that there's even any waiting period before you can go somewhere else? I don't know how that kind of thing works. If the promotion cuts you,
there's not a non-compete clause if they cut you.
Yeah.
Because they're cutting you. How can they cut you and then keep you? Basically, a non-compete at the end of a contract is a certain amount of time that when your contract comes to an end, let's say, a 3-fight contract and I fight my 3rd fight and I still haven't signed back up with the UFC, well, they have anywhere between 2 months to a year that they're the only ones I'm allowed to negotiate with, so they don't have a competition, so it's, their way of dragging it out. But I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I can't imagine how that hold up in a court of law where they cut you and then they're the ones competing. You can only talk to them about a contract. It's like, well, it doesn't work that way. You already released me.
Yeah, because my limited experience with that sort of thing, like I had that happen at a radio station after they changed formats. So my contract still had like 6 months on it or 9 months, and they paid out the contract. Like I basically got, I think it was 6 months, I got paid to sit home and do nothing.
Oh, wow.
But it was because the radio station had flipped format, so it wasn't a talk format anymore. But exactly what you said, it's if they're essentially cutting you, they have to either, and they didn't want me to jump right away to another competing company. They could have done that, and then I could have gone right away, but they went ahead and paid out the deal so that I sat for 6 months or whatever it was.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no way. I mean, that's indentured servitude,
right?
You know, to keep a guy from working and having no other options.
Yeah.
And so, I think he can immediately jump over to Bellator.
Yeah. Well, it would be exciting to see him over there and be another good get for Bellator. You know, you'll hear this when we get to Rikki Rockett here, but Rikki and I got to talking about the Demian Maia fight because as we taped it on Saturday night, Demian Maia was fighting Kamaru Usman, and Rikki was saying that Demian Maia is one of his favorite fighters to watch. I mean, you and I have talked about before, maybe, you know, pound for pound, the greatest pure jiu-jitsu practitioner in the UFC.
100%.
And we were talking about, you know, how Maia wins, and then also the times that he's lost fights, how he ends up losing. And Saturday, unfortunately for him, the latter was the case. He ran into Kamaru Usman, who really had incredible takedown defense in this fight. I mean, that was really the story of the fight because Maia had little to no success getting him down. He ended up losing a unanimous decision. But you know what you can say about Maia? Maia has only been finished once, I believe, in the UFC ever. And the thing about him is, even throughout that fight, he was never really in any trouble. You know, there was always the chance that he was going to get Usman to the ground. He knew what his game plan was. Unfortunately, he couldn't, you know, he wasn't competing toe-to-toe on the feet with Usman. But I think Maia went into that fight ranked number 5, something like that. And at 40 years old, I mean, that's a guy who, okay, he loses a fight. He's going to go down a couple of notches. He's not going to be out of the top 10. And would it surprise you, depending on opponent selection, if he goes ahead and puts together another couple of wins and gets right back up there to the middle of the top 10 in the welterweight division?
Not at all. I mean, he has a style that you know, he has that one weapon that's just very unbeatable. You know, on the ground, he's just a menace. So you know, if you're not able to avoid getting taken down, and there's a lot of guys, I mean, it's hard to say that in an MMA fight, that you're never going to get taken down. And so he always has that magic bullet that if he grabs you and you do fall down, the fight's over with.
You've talked on the show before about training with him, but for anybody who hasn't heard you explain that aspect of it, I mean, what makes him so unique and so special? And you're a guy, he's given up the better part of 100 pounds to you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When I rolled with him, he's just so good at the basics, and he doesn't ever relinquish position. So, you know, if you're rolling with him and he gets to half guard, he stays there. Then, you know, he might battle his way, and then you're fighting. And then a lot of times, you know, the thing he does well is that he doesn't try to force anything. Whereas sometimes, and I think most other practitioners and myself included, if something's not occurring, you know, we look to make things happen. Like, all right, maybe I'm going to take a little bit of a chance to expose you off balance so that I can create an opening to go for a leg or to go for an arm or go for a sweep. Whereas he doesn't make mistakes. So if nothing happens, then nothing happens. And then whenever you do those explosions and you try to make something happen, he blocks them. He stalemates it and then takes advantage of any opening that you left by trying to create something, and then boom, takes it up, and then he doesn't relinquish that ground again.
Yeah, like, and I think the way I was describing it to Rikki, is relaying the way you described it to me, is like he just takes that inch, and it's almost like it's demoralizing. Because every time he gets the inch, you get conditioned to the fact you're not getting the inch back, right? Yeah.
Almost like the true definition when people try to describe grapplers, like, oh, he's like an anaconda. I really think he's actually probably the closest description to that possible, because they're not fast, explosive movements and not big jumps. He just inches his way and breaks you down. And once he gets an area, it's hard to get him off and hard to get that area back. You know, Demian Maia, I told you, he's not extremely athletic. But he's just so technical and patient.
Yeah, I noticed on the pre-fight package that and it might have been Jimmy Smith. I can't remember who was voicing it over, but they cut back to the Matt Brown fight that Demian Maia had. If you remember that, I think it was a 3-rounder, but it was 3 exact mirrored rounds. It was start the fight on the feet, Maia gets his back, holds him there, and they cut in a close-up of Matt Brown's face at one point, and it was just this face of, oh, fuck. Here we are again.
Yeah, it's hard to get him off you.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, some other jiu-jitsu guys are a little bit more explosive and risk-taking, but those leave openings and leave gaps, and guys are able to slip through those at times, and it's kind of a risk-reward element starts going out, and it just, Maia's style doesn't take any risk. He doesn't make mistakes, and he's just, he just slowly inches forward.
Yeah. Before we get to Rikki Rockett, I just want to go back to Bellator here for a second and ask you, because we have not been together since Ryan Bader advanced in the Bellator heavyweight tournament in a big way, finishing King Mo in, I think it was like 11 seconds, something like that.
Left hook, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so, and you know what? I mean, this, in the early rounds of this, maybe that fight in particular, I was thinking, kind of needed that type of finish, whether it was going to be Mo or Bader. But, that was the kind of thing that was kind of set up to be this potential wrestle fest and that kind of stuff, given the pedigree the guys had. And I'm just thinking in terms of creating a lot of excitement for the momentum of the tournament, maybe this was better. Yeah,
actually, that was the best outcome. I didn't think of it that sort because, I can watch a wrestle fest and still be entertained if I'm watching intricate movements occur. But, and I think they'll probably see King Mo probably go back to middleweight, I can foresee that because he really was the smallest guy in the tournament,
Yeah. So big night for Ryan Bader. I thought the weirdest part of the night, I don't know if you saw this or not. So we were talking about John Fitch earlier. John Fitch grinds out Paul Daley.
Yeah.
He did what John Fitch does. Yep. I mean, he just grinded him out.
And that fight had one of two options. It was either going to be John Fitch getting knocked out in about 2 minutes highlight reel, or John Fitch grinding him for 20 or 15 minutes.
Right. But what happened was, in fact, we're flying blind tonight without a producer because Mikey is working. So he's probably having to shoot some transsexual porn or something. So otherwise, I'd get him to pull if he was here with us in studio, I'd get him to pull the clip up on the big screen. But I don't think I've ever seen this in a fight. I've seen a lot of John Fitch fights go this way and in this way. But I've never seen a guy in the closing minutes of a fight. Paul Daley finds himself on the ground, Fitch is on top of him, and he finds himself right up against the cage next to a hot mic. And so he can very clearly be heard on the broadcast, on the hot mic. And while Paul Daley is pinned to the ground with Fitch on top of him, Paul Daley starts booing his own fight. He starts yelling, "Boo! Boo!" And then he starts saying, in effect, how Bellator is losing millions of fans. Millions, I tell you, as this is happening to him. I don't think I've ever seen a fighter boo his own fight.
No, that was funny. But, I mean, that's the style that Fitch has. Very controlling, very on top of you, and it'd be nice, though, if he just – and I've seen him finish people, but if he just added, worked with Maia a little bit, because with his takedown ability and his ability to control, if he just added a little bit more deadly jiu-jitsu behind it, I think that he'd be more entertaining.
Yeah, I just think that's such a perilous trap to fall into because I get what he's trying to say, but I don't know how you ever make that look good. I don't know how you can ever really make look good being the guy who's getting beat and taking exception to the way that somebody is beating you within a rule set. Because I always just go back to, okay, stop it.
Well, I mean, but then you could say that this is a fight, and if I could sit here and talk to the camera, you're not really beating my ass. You're out wrestling me.
Yeah. But you're completely neutralizing any ability I have.
I get what you're saying as a sportsman.
Yeah.
But as a fighter, you're kind of saying like, okay, you know what I mean? I mean, with that thought process, if you punched me one time and ran for 4 minutes and 59 seconds, and I can't touch you, you technically won that round.
Yeah.
But is that fighting, or is that just following a rule set and going by it and going, well, these are the rules are set, and we try to make it as obstacle towards the safety of the fighters and towards fighting techniques. But there are people that manipulate the rule system and try to play a certain way. I mean, you see it in other sports where they have to go back and reinvent the rule and go, okay, well, we can't let them do this anymore. They figured out a loophole. And the one thing about sometimes MMA is the grinding, especially against the cage. I think they let guys sit there for way too long. I think you should have 15 seconds. My back hits the cage, you're against me, you have 15 seconds. If you can't take me down or beat me up, move us back to the center of the cage.
Well, I would just hope for this, Frank. I would hope that if you did have the misfortune to find yourself pinned to the mat and at a wrestling disadvantage like that, and you realize you're in front of a hot mic on network television, you would not squander that opportunity by booing yourself. I would hope you would be in front of that hot mic telling people to subscribe to Phone Booth Fighting via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud.
Segway.
Tell them to click on that 5-star rating when they look up Phone Booth Fighting in iTunes. That keeps us at the top of the podcast rank. In fact, if they have an extra moment or two, I'm telling you, Paul Daley had this much time. He could have gotten all this in. He could have told people to write a favorable line or two in the review section.
John Fitch could have punched him in the face and throw some elbows, and maybe it would have kept him from talking so much. Not letting them know about the Amazon banner they can click on.
Exactly. There would be time to mention the Amazon banner. Let's pretend John Fitch is on top of you right now, and it's not the night you'd hoped for, but you do realize you got about 30 seconds in front of a hot mic on network television. What would you say about the Amazon banner at phoneboothfighting.com?
Hey, if you can do any of your shopping for your wants and needs, if anybody has a birthday coming up, go ahead and purchase their present that way. Small percentage goes back to us here at the show to help us out at no extra cost to you.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'd still rather have you win, but if you can't win, it would be a victory of another. Yeah, that's right. It would be a victory of another sort. All right. Speaking of style, as I said at the top of the show, I had a fun, lengthy sit-down talking jiu-jitsu with Rikki Rockett of Poison this past weekend. So we're going to go back in time. You're going to hear Rikki and I talk a lot about jiu-jitsu because Rikki is a black belt in addition to being the drummer of Poison. He was kind enough to invite me in his dressing room. We set up all the Phone Booth Fighting mobile gear and taped a nice, lengthy chat. And then after that, you're going to hear Cody Garbrandt get on the phone with me, and we're going to talk about a new book that he's got out about a very special, heartwarming story, the bond that he has with a young man from his hometown that was a big pivotal part of Cody winning the UFC Bantamweight Championship. So without further ado, let's go back a few days in time, and I will join Rikki Rockett in Poison's dressing room here in Las Vegas. Here we go, back in time. Doodle-doo, doodle-doo, doodle-doo. It's Phone Booth Fighting, everybody. I am Richard Hunter. Frank Mir is in Nottingham, England. We are expecting him to FaceTime in via the iPad momentarily to join this unholy trinity of talkers. Now, he's unholy trinity. Wait a second. There's normally only two of you. Not today. Because while Frank is in Nottingham just wrapping up an ACB event over there, I am here in Las Vegas, but I'm not in the Phone Booth Fighting studio. I'm at the Hard Rock Casino and Hotel in the dressing room of Poison, and our guest is Rikki Rockett. Rikki, good to see you again, man. How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me on again.
Thanks for coming on, and thanks for doing this in person. We're backstage. Poison's playing at the Hard Rock Casino tonight. And you were kind enough to have us into your dressing room here with the mobile setup. We got so much good feedback the first time we had you on because, and this goes back a number of months, but if you look up Rikki's first episode, Rikki, in addition to being known the world over as the drummer of Poison, is also a jiu-jitsu black belt. And not a lot of people, at least our listeners, were aware of that, and man, were they interested to find that out. And they listened to our episode, and they're like, yeah, this guy back on again. You got to talk more jiu-jitsu. He knows what he's talking about. We want to hear more about that side of him. So that's kind of our main purpose today. But maybe we could start there for people. And Frank will pop on here any minute. By the way, we just talked to him, and he's waiting to connect with us via FaceTime. So Frank will be on with us here momentarily, we expect. But just for maybe everybody who didn't hear the the first episode, give everybody an idea of how you got started, because this isn't just something you started doing a year ago. I mean, you've gone all the way to your black belt.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really talk about it publicly a whole lot until I got, until I was at least probably a purple belt, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I was already famous for what I wanted to be famous for.
Yeah,
I didn't need jiu-jitsu to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then I realized that I could have a positive influence with other people getting involved, especially when I started helping out with some of the sober house guys that are trying to get sober and they're looking for something else to fill something in their life. Mm-hmm. And jiu-jitsu is a great thing for that, by the way. It really is for any addiction. Yeah. I have a very addictive personality, and thank God I got addicted to jiu-jitsu rather than something else.
Boy, me too. I don't drink, I don't do any drugs, and it's for that reason, because I always thought if I did, I would be really good at it. I'd be really dedicated.
Oh yeah, no, if I was a junkie, I'd have the really cool setup and I'd get all into it and or whatever they have. But no, I mean, I've done my share of stuff. I've tried things and I've done things, and I'm not going to say I haven't partied, but I really don't care about any of that stuff anymore. It's drums and jiu-jitsu and motorcycles for me.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good thing to know about yourself, though, because I've always said people that have those kinds of personalities, and I said I relate to that, one of the most important things you can do is to know yourself well enough to know, hey, if I do something, I'm going to go 100% at it. I don't know if you're like, I'm like this with if I find something I want to binge watch, let's watch them all.
Oh,
tonight.
Yeah. No, I'm doing that with Sons of Anarchy now. It's and that takes a while to get through all that. But there's 2 more episodes left of season 7, which is the last one, and I went on tour. So I don't want to hear about it. Well, anyway, the way I got into jiu-jitsu is I love martial arts. I was a Bruce Lee fan. Thank God I grew up in a time when there was Bruce Lee and Evel Knievel and all that stuff, And so when I had the money to train, I had my life threatened with a knife. And when I had the money to train in a little bit of time, finally, I sought out one of the first or second generation Jeet Kune Do guys. Mm-hmm. And I wound up with Cass Magda, who's third generation. He was Danny Inosanto's assistant for a long time. And, of course, Danny was Bruce Lee's assistant. Mm-hmm. So I got it, pretty close. But he had some background in Kali and C-Lot. And the C-Lot kind of put me in touch with grappling again because I wrestled in high school and junior high. And so I loved wrestling. I loved grappling. And I finally realized that grappling is a martial art.
Yeah.
And, that sounds funny today for somebody to say, well, gee, yeah, of course it is. But, 20 years ago, let's say, people didn't see it that way. They saw grappling as one thing, as wrestling, and stand-up arts is something completely different. I mean, literally, boxing is a martial art. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. People don't look at it that way. But Bruce Lee always talked about how if you could box and you could wrestle, you could beat most martial artists. Mm-hmm. And if you look in the UFC, I mean, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing boxing and wrestling. Now, people are turning there's more hybrid coming out all the time. Guys are making high kicks work now all of a sudden. Guys are doing crazy throws. All of a sudden, it's the element of surprise, you know what I mean? And so you're seeing this evolution of all this stuff. But back to my story was I had met the Machado brothers, and they said, come on down, And so I did. I took them up on it. I went down to the gym.
What time about? What year roughly is this?
4 or something like that, somewhere in there. And so I went down to the gym. One of the first people I met was Eddie Bravo.
Yeah.
And a couple other guys. And we did a couple techniques, and I was a little bit late by the time I got acclimated, and we were already in the free training. And I said, I'll be fine. I got tapped out a dozen times, and I looked up at the sign on the wall, and it said, leave your ego at the door. And I went, that's really important right now, because I was just taught some, I was humbled by the truth.
Yeah.
And so the next day I signed up, and my first did a private first with John Jock, and then 2 days later I did a private with Hanato Magno, who is still my coach to this day, and I just fell in love with it. And after a while, I stopped doing other martial arts and just went deeply into jiu-jitsu. Not that I've forgotten about those other things, but I just got really deeply into that. And and then when Hanat started his own school, I went over there and stuck with those guys. And I'm still, we're still very close, those schools and those students with John Jock students. And the Machado brothers are really my family, too, without a doubt. I just love Higgin. I love all those guys. Yeah. But I got to like purple belt, I think, under John Jock, and then I was a purple belt forever, man. God, I was like 7 or 8 years.
Really?
Like, they just would not promote me. I mean, it was like I'm a slow learner. I'm not a gifted, talented jiu-jitsu guy. You know what I mean? I'm not Gordon. You know what I mean? Or something. Yeah. It doesn't take me one time. It takes me 20, 30 times. Yeah. But once I have it, it's really solid. But it takes me a little while.
See, I relate to that. I'm the same way too, and I'm now blue working to purple. And it's like that, especially starting older. I mean, I wish I would have started this much younger. I've started older, but that feels okay to me. I sort of put in perspective very early on that belt ranking and that sort of thing. I wasn't going to prioritize that. It was just going to come when it came.
You know what? I think that. Sometimes somebody will like on Facebook or something will say, "Oh, my daughter just got her black belt in Taekwondo. Isn't that great? You guys are the same." And it's like, not exactly. Yeah. The thing with jiu-jitsu is, if you're in the traditional grouping of guys, Machado brothers type of guys, Gracie's, some of the, those belts are definitely earned. That. So it does say something about where you're at.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't mean you're a badass. There are legitimate blue belts that can, put me away. I know they can. I know there's guys that are they're athletic, they're aggressive, they've got, their technique is solid or whatever. And I'm a little bit older, not as aggressive or athletic. And, so it's not, but I can go and do a seminar and with my experience and with everything that I've gained as a jiu-jitsu guy over the 20 years or so that I've been doing this, I think really tell a lot about it. And it's not always about it's not always about kicking ass. It's about understanding how to. I mean, it's like there's like you see these old boxing coaches, and you just feel like that guy couldn't stop a riot, you know what I mean? And this guy will have unprecedented amount of knowledge about boxing and can pick somebody's game out in the first 30 seconds of a round and go, that guy's going to do this, or he's going to feint all the time, or he's going to whatever. And that's, at this point in time, that's what I want to be good at. I want to be able to help coach other people and sort of pass the jiu-jitsu along and keep an eye on the future, and at the same time respect the tradition of it. There's some guys that are, and sorry if I'm rattling here.
No.
There's a lot of rifts right now between a lot of the older school traditional jiu-jitsu stuff and the new school stuff. And, I say that's one thing I love about my coach is he looks at everything. Mm-hmm. He looks at everything. He doesn't say no to anything. He'll try whatever. But I have noticed that both schools work. I mean, there's guys doing new school jiu-jitsu that are winning, and then there's guys like, that have been at the game for so long, and it's basic jiu-jitsu, and they're winning with it. Mm-hmm. It's about the man or the woman. You know what I mean? It's about the mindset, the athleticism. There's so many, I think, things that go, ingredients that it's what keeps it interesting for me.
I also think that there's such a mental component to it too, because it's not just about knowing all the moves or all the techniques. It's knowing what goes where, when. And a lot of times you have to make that decision in a split second. What would fit here? What would work here? What would transition from here?
Right.
And there's a whole nother side to that. I mean, just getting the mental preparation together.
There's the old saying, and I'm not sure who said this. I thought it was Bruce Lee, but I don't think it is. I don't fear the man that has 10,000 kicks. I fear the man that has practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
So it is about solid technique. I mean, I don't think Rickson Gracie's got a billion techniques that he uses. I just did a seminar with him, but his technique is, what are you going to do to that guy? His technique is so flippin' solid. It's insane. You know what I mean? And it's basic Brazilian Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and it just flipping works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you're doing this seminar in Columbus, Ohio, and coming up later in in June. And now, have you ever thought about you might be the only guy who could do a jiu-jitsu / drum seminar? That would be interesting.
It would be interesting. Yeah. Maybe I should put that together.
That's right.
Yeah, I do a drum clinic, and then halfway through start doing, like moves from side control.
That's right. That's right. And then we have multi-level competition. The drummers try their hand at jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu students try their hand at keeping a beat. We give an award for whoever can do both the best, I guess.
By the way, do you ever hug her and start doing underhooks?
My girlfriend,
and then she's like, "What are you doing?" My girlfriend gets so pissed at me because she thinks, because I used to try things on her, and I've learned not to do that because she freaks out.
Yeah.
But now I just automatically I touch her and I'll hold the elbow, do something, and she'll be like, "You're going to do some jiu-jitsu on me right now." I'm like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm loving you."
Next thing you know, she gets swept.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, it's interesting because we're talking about Jennifer, who's just off camera. She's actually filling in as producer today, doing a great job of that because Mikey's working. Our producer normally works on Saturday. This whole thing, by the way, thanks again for having us into your inner sanctum here because it was special and we wanted to do it for sure, but our producer works on Saturdays. Frank was in England, so we made it happen.
Right on.
We got it together. But and I always say this. I mean, you bring her up, but this is kind of a point I like to make to anybody who's just a fan of, let's just say MMA. That practicing or studying any type of basic jiu-jitsu is actually going to do two things for you. One, it's going to give you basic self-defense technique. The other thing, though, is it's going to increase your enjoyment of watching it because you're going to understand so much better what's going to happen before it happens. And
right.
I've already seen that with her. She'll start to say, he needs to be setting up he needs to transition to side control here. You're getting it. And so that's that. I mean, there's something in it because one thing I always try to tell people, Ricky, is don't get caught up in, you're going to pursue a PhD and, oh my gosh, that's going to take so many years. It's going to take me so many years to get to my black belt. You will get something out of it at a very early point, I believe.
Yeah, it's not a means to an end. It's, I think that any martial artist needs to incorporate this into their system. But the thing that I think is so cool about it is you'll have somebody like Demian Maia, for example, who arguably has not really, I don't know what his training camp's like, but from the looks of it, it looks like he's coming from pretty much a straight jiu-jitsu background, and he's ranked 5th or something?
Yeah, he's actually fighting tonight. He's fighting Kamaru Usman tonight, and yeah, he is ranked.
And that guy's a beast. Yeah. So it's I'm really, really excited to find out what I'm going to be on stage. So,
yeah, that's why I won't spoil it for you.
Man, but I have the app, so I'm gonna.
I'll tell you. Hopefully, Frank's going to get on with us here in just a bit. But I'll tell you what Frank has told me about training with Demian Maia. He said that is probably the one of the best pure jiu-jitsu practitioners he'd ever trained with. And he said what he does is it's such a waiting game because he's saying, as you know, Frank outweighs Demian Maia by the better part of 100 pounds. And he said what he does is he gets you, and he's so patient. It's like a boa constrictor. He said he's just waiting for you to take a breath, And as soon as he hears it, it's like, oh, I'll take another little inch. Oh, I got an inch. I'll take that inch. And once he takes the inch, he doesn't give it back. Mm-hmm. And you start to process in your mind, I just gave up ground that I will not be getting back. Now I am left with a smaller patch of land here, and it just gets smaller and smaller and the walls close in. And that's, to me, one of the beauties of watching him. You know, I think for the casual fan who's looking for a tough man contest or something, maybe they're not appreciating that. But I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of it to watch.
Oh, definitely. I think that's why Jake Shields probably isn't in as many fights, because it's not as exciting to watch. If you're a grappler, it is, because you understand what's going on.
Yeah.
The guy's an amazing grappler, but you know, he's not. I guess the UFC fans want to see blood, and they want to, but he'll control a guy, and that's the end of it. I mean, if he decides he's, you know, so I mean, that's just an example. There's a lot of guys like that. I think that that there are some guys that are kind of starting to give the UFC a little bit of both now. You know, Khabib, for one, I think is, because it, you know, it just looks like he's, and he's using the Demian Maia concept, really. He comes from a different school. He comes from a Samba school, but it's grappling, and he's controlling guys, and he's striking, and he's sort of doing it all. You know, Damian strikes less, I think.
Yeah, and Damian's striking has gotten better. By the way, if anybody's watching, I apologize. I was monitoring for Frank texting me here, because he had a Frank. If you don't know this, I was telling Rikki off camera. Our listeners already know the story, but Frank is splitting his time between fighting in Bellator and also doing color commentary and promotion for ACB. So more weekends than not, that takes him all around the world. And so he's over there in England, and he was actually involved in promoting the fight tonight. So they just got done as we were connecting on FaceTime with the card tonight. Well, I'll tell you, Frank has made me an interesting offer, Rikki. You know, I said that I don't prioritize belt rank and such, but his son, who is 12, is he told his son that he wanted him to become at least a purple belt, and before he bought him a car. That he's shooting for that by 16, right?
Right.
And he didn't feel, that's Cage, and he didn't feel like Cage was being motivated enough. So he told Cage that if Richard gets his purple belt before Cage does, he's going to buy me Cage's car. So now I actually do have something to shoot for.
Yeah, right. Wow.
That'd be one pissed off kid, though. I hate to do that to him, you know. Now, when you said you started, because I'm just thinking of the timeline and everything, when you got real serious about this in the 90s, now, music-wise, I mean, 90s were bad for a lot of 80s bands, well documented. Was that maybe a time where Poison was a little dormant? I mean, did that give you more time, you know, to get in there and train as opposed to what it would be like now?
It did, but, you know, it just so happened that the UFC was exploding, and Royce Gracie was the person I saw, and I wanted to be like Royce, you know? Royce became the new Bruce Lee in that regard, and you know, so when I met the Machado brothers, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's Royce's camp, so to speak. I mean, Machado brothers are not the Gracies, but they came over at the same time, and so you know, I wanted to learn that stuff. So, but yeah, I know what you're getting at. Mm-hmm. There was a little more free time. I got out of the music business for a while. Not completely, but I mean, I saw what was happening, and Poison, you know, we didn't have CC. He was, we just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Brett was messing around with some movies. Mm-hmm. I started a comic book company with a buddy of mine that I wanted to do for a long, long time, who passed away, by the way, which is why I closed the company. But I tried that. I'm just like, you know what? I can't pretend that I'm a grunge band or try to do that. I'm not. That's not my thing. That's cool, but it's not what I want to do. And so I just decided, you know, I don't want to play for a little while. I'm not going to try to go compete in that market that's not fertile for us right now. And so I tried the comic book thing, and it afforded me the time to train jiu-jitsu.
You know, that maybe hindsight is is the greatest approach if you're fortunate enough to have the ability, because when you think about it, Poison reached the highest heights of attainable, and then during that down period, rather than, because we saw other bands that tried to do that tried to be things they weren't and just tried to adapt, rather take a step back, and then you know what happened? Everything comes around again. Now it's huge again. And
well, the thing is what Poison did was we didn't really. I mean, we lost Cece and we got Richie Kotzen in the band, and we made a record that made sense with Richie Kotzen in the band.
Yeah.
Okay, and we evolved as we completely ignored what was happening on the scene. Pretty much, we just evolved and just took our music in a whole different direction than what Poison had done, that what was happening with grunge or pop or anything. We just went for a bluesy almost direction, and I think I'm very proud of that record. Mm-hmm. And but I've never backtracked on anything that I've ever done with Poison. And at that time there was a lot of people that wanted to do interviews with me so that they could kind of fight with me. You know what I mean? And that's the hair metal moniker started to come out at that time, and it was used as a weapon pretty much. And it was funny because my girlfriend at the time was working for Radio Free Virgin, and she had she was doing interviews too for something else she was doing, mm-hmm. and she requested an interview for this hair metal thing, and I didn't like the name of it, so I turned down the interview.
Oh.
And years later, she goes, you turned down my interview, you asshole. And I was like, but I thought we were going to get made fun of, and I was over it. I'm like, I'm not going to backpedal and say I'm embarrassed of what Poison is or was or did. I'm not. I'm proud of what we did. People were like, well, you're not metal enough. You're not. I'm like, we were a rock and roll band. We've always been a rock and roll band. We love the showmanship. I don't have to wear sparkly shit to be a glam band. It's in our music. It's in our soul. I've just never been embarrassed about what we did. I'll go out and sing it till the cows come home. And a lot of bands did. They try to backpedal. Oh, well, we just did it because it was hip at the time. But what I really care about is Black Sabbath, and I want to be all this bullshit. And it's like, dude, you're full of shit. You made it, if you made a record that you really didn't want to make, you deserve to go down in flames.
Yeah.
I made a record that I wanted to make. I liked the songs that we're playing them tonight. You know what I mean? I've never felt that they were cheesy and, all these things that people have thrown at us. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. I don't buy into it. They might be selling it, but I'm just not going to buy it.
Well, I think too, whatever makes you is kind of that's to me the litmus test of authenticity. I had this, Vinnie Paul lives here from Pantera.
I love Vinny.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. And we had this conversation one time because we're both huge Kiss fans. I know you are too, but we just grew up on Kiss. We were talking about Kiss one day, as Kiss fans do, and we were talking about drumming influences. And he said, well, now the way I actually ended up playing, he said, maybe somebody like Alex Van Halen is more of a direct influence. He goes, but you know what? If there wasn't Peter Criss, I'm not here. He's like, how do you find a bigger influence than that? It's like saying your dad was an influence. If your dad wasn't there, you're not there. You know what I'm saying? So It's kind of like, I don't really get needing to dissect and split hairs over, well, I was more influenced by this than that, or this is more legitimate than that. It's like, what got you here? And if you made something of yourself, then to me that's all the credit any of those influences need at that point. And I'll say this about you guys too. To me, you obviously have a lot of self-confidence in your catalog and your live show when Cheap Trick's your opening act. That's
what? They're so freaking legendary. It's amazing. I pinch myself sometimes. I can walk over in Rick's dressing room and say, hey, and strike up a conversation. It's pretty pretty flippin' cool.
Boy, that's letting you know just in case you were thinking about phoning it in on any given night not to, right?
No, you can't. No. They're going to call you on it. You know?
Yeah.
No, I find myself in a very lucky position. I mean, first of all, I just put out a post this morning, a picture of me and my girlfriend, and I have my health and the band and my family. I was reflecting on my kids being there last night and me bringing them up on stage at the end of the night, and all these things that I'm blessed with. And I can get up and walk to the refrigerator and get something to eat, and then drive my motorcycle to jiu-jitsu and train and come back and play my drums. And, not everybody can do those things, those simple things in life, and we're blessed that we can do those things. I don't mean to turn this into like some kind of like spiritual hour of power, but I mean, it's, you have to pinch yourself and go. And then it goes up to the next level where we're out here with Cheap Trick playing with us, and I'm sitting there going, wow, things could be a hell of a lot worse. A few years ago, I was fighting for my life,
Yeah.
So.
No, if you have all of that and then just the ability to do what you enjoy, and, one of the things that really appealed to me about you when we made the connection, I mean, I'd been a fan of the music, but getting to know a little bit more about you personally is I always gravitate toward Renaissance people. I mean, people who just I think have a thirst to be as well-rounded as they can and experience as much as they can. And I told Frank that when we started talking about it. I said, this is one of those guys. This is a guy that if we keep having him on the show, he'll bring something different every time we have him on because he's going to be trying something different or doing something different or,
You know what? It's the one thing I've been criticized with my vlog. And, I have this thing called Rocket Vlog. And it's on YouTube. And I'm plugging it right now, so sure. I urge you to come watch it. But was that I kind of had to find my niche because I was all over the place. I was doing everything that I'm interested in, talking about cameras, talking about studio gear, talking about drums, talking about motorcycles, talking about Monster Palooza, NAMM. I mean, all these things. And I think people are like, what am I coming here for? I'm not sure. And I think really my niche for that is the motorcycle thing because the motorcycles take me everywhere. I have 7 bikes, and I'm on a bike almost every day, and I go to jiu-jitsu on it. I go to visit places on it. I go to haunted places on it. So all those paths lead me somewhere. You know what I mean? And so I think that's really sort of my niche is to always include the bike in my vlog, and that's kind of where it's gone. You know what I mean? But I like to have all those things under my belt because it gives me more to talk about on camera. If I'm just going like, hey, today we're going to install pegs on my Indian, it's not that interesting to everybody. Some guys it is, but some people are like, nah, but so I try to keep it more fun. Like even when I did a vlog on putting a Weber grill together, I stopped in the middle of the grill and took off on my motorcycle and vlogged about being on the bike. So that's kind of my release is the motorcycle stuff.
Did the grill finally get put together?
I finally put it together. Yeah, I did.
Well, that's the approach Frank and I have to the podcast is exactly that. I mean, because people sometimes will talk to us pro and con about, oh gosh, you guys talk about fighting, but then you get into politics and you do music and you do all those things. And Frank and I have always been unapologetic about the fact that this was a friendship between the two of us that involved a lot of late night conversations and things like that. And one day Frank said, we ought to just record this stuff. I mean, we're trying to solve the world's problems on my back porch. Let's just put it out there for everybody. So that's kind of what the show has always been. And one of my favorite things has been the way that we will turn each other on to different things I know about that he didn't or vice versa.
Right.
So that's something we've all, and I think the people that follow us and have been with us for a couple of years now, solid, that they're really drawn to that, Now let me ask, because I wanted to ask you about this. I guess maybe before we started rolling here, we were talking about how you do have to be careful about training jiu-jitsu on the road because you're a drummer, which is a very physical element of any rock band. Everybody's counting on you. One bad injury and it affects a lot of people financially, etc. Now, on the one hand, jiu-jitsu for me is a great way to stay in shape. On the other hand, my back and my neck are sore a lot of days. So where's the balance for you in having it be a good physical activity to stay in shape, but at the same time making sure that it's not taking you to a point of hindering what you have to do as a day job?
Well, on the road, I have to, you nailed it. I have to be careful on the road.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. When I'm at home, I have another band called the Devil City Angels, so I have to be careful when we're doing some gigs too. I just have to try to train uninjured. So like when we're not in a cycle with either band, I'll train in the regular class and stuff like that. But when I'm getting ready for a Poison tour, I'll just do privates or roll with guys that I know real well, that I know aren't going to try to rip me or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I handle it. When I went through the head and neck cancer stuff, I got blasted with radiation. So my neck, it gets sore a lot, and more than it used to, way more. But at the same time, I think that it's helped me get to recover quicker. I busted right back into jiu-jitsu as soon as I was out of it. As soon as I was out of the treatment, I was like, bam, right back into jiu-jitsu. They wouldn't let me train when I was going through it. But,
yeah. That's it's always interesting to hear that because especially, and as I said at the beginning, I got into it a little bit older, so I didn't have the ability to have all those years in your late teens and early 20s when you're
me neither.
Bulletproof and and you can just do anything. Now I thought about this too, and I was going to ask you because we were setting up here. You were talking about like all the the ability to do the things you want to do, jump on the bike, go train jiu-jitsu, go to practice, what have you. We did get an interesting rock and roll snapshot right before we started here. I wanted to make sure I share with our listeners because Rikki came in. I actually beat you into your own dressing room here because you were sound checking.
Yeah.
And you're talking to Bobby, your assistant there, and you said, I think I might wear a hat for this interview. And he disappeared, and he reappeared with a container that had a real wide selection of chapeaus in the container. And Rikki went through all the hats in the container, and then he said, I don't think I'm going to wear a hat. That's another pretty cool little ability to have, it's like ordering takeout for hats.
When you're on the road, it's like it's easy to have your stuff spread out all over the place.
Yes.
It's really hard to keep your stuff together. We just threw everything on the bus, went to the first show, right? And he's like, are you going to come into the dressing room and get ready? And I'm like, if I do that, I have 6 bags I got to drag in there because I have pants in one bag, short sleeves in another, accessories in another. But, it's like until you can get in a groove and put all my show stuff in one place and, it's just you get spread out between the bus and the dressing room. And I kind of live off my bus typically. Like once we get rolling, I hardly ever go into hotels, and I hardly ever go into dressing rooms.
Oh,
I come into the dressing room sometimes after to do things like this, but typically I stay on my bus. I've got everything I need in there, and I could, it's like I'm RVing the whole freaking tour, and I got a trailer with my bike in there, and if I had my kids with me, I could perpetually tour.
Yeah,
literally.
Now give us a little explanation here on this one too, because I always found this interesting from the musical standpoint. The mythical wardrobe case is right here behind us. Now,
that's mythical?
Well, in this sense, I always had this idea in my head, like, how does that thing get reset? You know what I'm saying? Like no matter what city it is, you've got to be able to walk in and know basically what's going to be in there, right?
Yeah.
So what do you know, without even looking, what do you know you can count on being in there?
You know what? For a drummer, for me, vests and scarves are my best friend.
Yeah.
If I have a black shirt, I can change scarves and vests, and it looks like I have a new outfit on.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because
accessories are your friend.
You don't really see what I'm wearing down here so much. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So yeah, and we have a wardrobe girl. She helps out with that.
So
stuff,
she'll spruce it up. Like should she sort of make sure everything's kind of fresh in there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Send it to the cleaners and stuff like that.
Yes. All
but
right.
we don't have like a stylist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We don't have somebody that comes in and lays things out for us or any of that kind of stuff. We just kind of, we used to get into all that kind of stuff, but at this age and at this point in time, we just sort of have fallen into our groove, you know what I mean? And I'm still pretty experimental with clothes. I like to change a lot, I go through phases and, I think fashion's fun. I think it's a blast. I could have gone into that in my life probably at one point because I just think it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny when you look back. I don't think anybody looks back at 20 years ago and doesn't laugh at themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like my idea is always like, why not have fun with it right now?
Right.
Like go all the way and have a really good time with it. We're all going to fucking laugh anyway.
You hope. Some of us are going to look at ourselves 20 years ago and cry. So hopefully it's laughing, right? Yeah. Now, what's your jiu-jitsu style? Like what kind of gis do you like? Are you like a lightweight gi guy? I just started
unless it's cold.
Yeah. I get claustrophobic, so I like light stuff. I don't like the heavy. One thing I dealt with, and maybe a question for you too, because when I started jiu-jitsu, being more like an average size guy, we're not giant guys. I got very claustrophobic when the super heavyweight would be on the mats and they'd get on top of you and I'd be like,
sure.
And that was actually one of the first breakthroughs I had in jiu-jitsu was learning that this is an advantage. If I get this guy close to me, I don't need to be freaking out. I've got him where I want him, set up to sweep him or collar choke or something like that. But I found that I think because of that, I kind of liked lighter feeling gis and stuff like that. Do you have anything like that you particularly gravitate toward?
Yeah, I like lighter gis too. I use Moya mainly. Some Shoyu roll and Origin. They're the three gis I pretty much roll in most of the time, and then on Fridays, no gi.
Yeah,
we roll naked. No, I'm kidding. No, it's So we call it Footlock Friday.
That's a good one. That sounds like something you'd hear in classic rock, doesn't it? It's Footlock Friday.
Yeah, it does. And I like training without the gi a lot too.
Yeah.
It's a different game a little bit. But the basics are still there. You got to put the weight down and control the guy and all that kind of stuff. But one thing I try to let people know about right away in jiu-jitsu is, when somebody's on top of you and you're feeling paranoid, that's when you're learning something.
For sure.
That's where you need to turn that the other way. And I still once in a while get paranoid.
Yeah.
And go, whoa, because it's just a natural human instinct, I think we all do if we feel like we can't get out, and then, so you try to turn that around and just go like, I'm going to figure this out. I need to calm down, breathe, and understand where my body is and where that person's body is and figure out how to move out of this place. And that's a learning process. And the fact of the matter is you can just tap.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more it becomes like, wow, if this was a real life situation, you can't think that way because you'll get totally paranoid and just start squirming, what I mean? But so, now at this point in time, I'm very comfortable with but it was one of the things like when I went through radiation, I don't mean to keep going back to that, but when I had radiation, they make a mask and they clip you to a frickin' table. So your head can't move.
Oh, wow.
And it's an extremely paranoid,
I can imagine,
claustrophobic feeling.
Yeah.
And then I just sat there and I thought to myself, I've had 230-pound Brazilians on top of me bent on my destruction. Mm-hmm. I can handle this. It's a piece of plastic. If I really freak out, I can break it off. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that helped me get through that.
Yeah, see, that's such a great metaphor for life, I think, because it's a great way of putting it, what you just said about, when the paranoia sets in, that's when you're learning something. Because one of the things that I realized jiu-jitsu gave me the ability to do was, and I'm not somebody who walks through life looking for trouble, so I don't find myself in a lot of bar fights, but just the the realization, the concept that if you get in even what you think might be a precarious situation or a predicament or, something that seems a little bit dangerous, there is no panic because you know what to do. You got a plan. There's a plan. And a lot of times I think that carries over into just kind of a plan for life. You never know when you're going to be faced, just like you were talking about in a medical situation.
Right.
It enabled you to kind of have a plan probably in that moment.
Yeah. I quote Bruce Lee a lot because I think it relates to what we're talking about with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
He said, to find your true spiritual self, you must first step through the physical door. And I think, and what goes hand in hand with that is also about why he liked judo, which is similar to jiu-jitsu, because in order to learn to swim, you got to get in the water.
Yeah.
And that's what you do in jiu-jitsu. You get in the water every day and you try to swim, okay?
Yeah.
You try to stay afloat. You try to keep your head above water. That's what it feels like. And you just get better at keeping your head above water. And I mean, and isn't that life, really?
Yeah.
We're keeping our head above ground. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I don't mean to sound so basic or so like grim, but, I mean, really you want to wake up and enjoy life, have life, and, preserve life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, if you are in danger, and you have fight or flight, which comes down to a physical thing, and you've already trained of how to deal with that feeling, it translates into all sorts of aspects of your life. That's the spiritual teaching, not sitting there with your legs crisscrossed applesauce with your fingers like in a yoga position. I'm not saying anything bad about that. Don't take it that way. But a lot of people think that the spiritual part of martial arts is like this mystic wisdom that somebody's going to impart on you, and really it comes from just literally physically doing something and somebody explaining what's going to happen if you change your thought process about that physical thing. Rickson Gracie has been talking about this invisible jiu-jitsu, and really it's just shifting your thought of where to position your body. It's really, the techniques don't look that much different, and you really can't see that much of a difference, especially the average eye, but it makes a huge difference in reality. You know what I mean? And isn't that really what life is about, is shifting your perspective? You shift your, I don't mean to get deep, but you shift your perspective about something, and all of a sudden this other world opens up. Like literally.
I think it does, and I think also when you can, especially when you can connect with someone else on that level, it makes for a better day. Because I will take this interaction from this today and maybe one with someone else tomorrow, but it's kind of like when you realize somebody has made all those connections through those processes, I think for all the bad you see in the world and all the chaos and all the scary things and the uncertainty, you can have that type of meaningful interaction with another person and just kind of put a check mark in the good column, the win column. Be like, all right, well, that restores my faith in humanity just a little bit right there. That's a good one.
I've been trying to use that headspace for a lot of things in life. Yeah. Like, for example, even like what's going on, and I don't get political, okay, because it's our country so divided as it is already. But like, for instance, like what's going on with like these shootings and stuff, okay, let's just take that by way of example. If your mind is so made up as to what the answer is to fix that you won't listen to any other side of it, nobody's ever going to fix anything.
Yeah.
Because the truth literally is in the middle with these types of things in the world. And, and I think that comes from literally any problem. Nothing's black and white. I mean, it just isn't,
No, it's always shades of gray. And the problem is, I think a lot of times we are sold black and white promises to gray problems because that's what a politician would have you believe. But no, that's very true. And just to put a bow on that point, I will say this. I always get upset when people say, let's say a musician or an entertainer or something like that. Well, they're just that. So they don't have a point of view that matters. Course, I don't believe that. But I'll tell you what I also don't believe is that because they are a person of notoriety, that their opinion automatically matters. I do exactly what you said, which is, okay, you have an opinion, let me hear it. And then I'll decide, case by case. But let's don't automatically dismiss, because someone is or isn't something as a pre-qualifier.
No, I mean, listen, look, if my telephone isn't working, okay, do I have to understand everything about telephones to say, hey, there's a problem here, we need it to get fixed? You get the right person that can fix it, and you complain and you try to get it fixed. In other words, I don't need to be well-versed on the entire world to recognize a problem and ask that it be solved. Mm-hmm. There are great minds that do this. You need enough of an understanding to understand the points of view to help get that along. Maybe I can be more specific. Let's go back to the gun thing for just a second. If you don't understand a person that wants guns and why they do, and you don't look at their perspective, you're never going to get anywhere, period. Because, but the person that is pro-gun is never going to understand somebody that is anti-gun unless they understand what their perspective and what they're freaking out about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I guess we can't solve the world's problems with jiu-jitsu, but it sure helps.
Yeah. No, well, listen, I think at least in your ability to be a critical thinker, because, Frank and I, listeners to this show know, I mean, this is a long-standing conversation on this show, because Frank is a big gun guy. He has a lot of guns. I don't have any, but we come to a kind of common ground on this, because Frank is actually one of the gun guys that will have no problem telling you, oh, nobody needs that one. Oh, that's not smart. We don't need that. It's not a black or a white thing, and so many people want to find that black and white. I always think they want to find that because it keeps them from having to use deductive reasoning. That's going to take up a lot. That's scary. Just give me the black and the white. Tell me where it's written down somewhere what I'm supposed to do, and I'll do that.
Right. Absolutely, yes. And we're at a point in time now with I always call it the Howard Stern era. Mm-hmm. I actually like Howard Stern, mm-hmm. but once Howard Stern came into the fold, it kind of ushered in a ball busting sort of society a little bit, where people feel like they can go after celebrities or anybody because they're public property now. Mm-hmm. You know mm-hmm. what I mean? And they're not public property. Some aspects are, and you're going to get scrutinized, but it's almost like that person's famous. They're having way too much fun. Fuck them. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to bring them fucking down. You know what I mean? And it's like, trust me, anybody that's gotten anywhere in life has ground it out just like anybody else. It never just magically happens.
And just okay. Oh, we're getting the wrap signal because Rikki's got a meet and greet. By the way, that didn't come in 30 minutes ago, did it? Did we just? Oh boy. Okay. You think we're okay? We'll wrap it right here. Fine. Yeah. Okay.
No, we're good.
Okay, because Poison has to do their meet and greet. Jennifer just noticed the note that got slipped under the door here. Here's what we're going to have to do, Rick. First of all, we've had problems connecting with Frank today, and we have promised our listeners a Rikki Rockett, Frank Mir back and forth on jiu-jitsu. So what that means is, at some point, if you have the time, we need to get you back on the show.
Anytime,
if you'd be willing.
Honestly. I mean, if you want to do it later, you just tell me.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that.
I'm a Frank fan.
Yes.
So anytime. I mean, it's a pleasure.
We're going to make it happen, and I know Frank is going to be offering a lot of apologies because of everything going on over there in England tonight. But let's let you get to the meet and greet, and thank you again for having us back here and accommodating us and everything. It's been a great conversation, man.
Yeah, it's great. I hope I didn't go too far over the top. No, sometimes I get on a rant. I go, blam, bam.
That's why you're perfect. That's why you're perfect for this podcast because we go deep all the time. You can subscribe to Rikki's vlog via his YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out. He gave me one of these very cool Rikki Rockett drum picks. I appreciate that. I traded in this for the phone booth fighting T-shirt that looks fantastic.
I tell everybody I have the biggest pick in the band.
Yeah, you do. You sure do. Good luck plucking a six-string with that. But anyway, really appreciate you having us again, and looking forward to the show. Can I stay for the show? Is it okay if
Absolutely.
I just hide in the back?
Hell yeah.
They won't kick me out.
We got you.
I got to see this thing rock tonight. Thanks again for the time, man, and we'll get you back on very soon.
Thank you. And everybody, 2 Ricks make a right.
I like that. Let's you and I use that's pretty good. If we did a wacky morning show, that'd be our sign off.
We need to, maybe.
Right on. Thanks, Rikki.
All right. Thank you.
Cody Garbrandt joining me on the line now, former UFC bantamweight champion, has a brand new book out called The Pact that we're going to be talking about. A pretty incredible story is the basis for the book. Cody, welcome to the show. First of all, I want to tell you my co-host, Frank Mir, is traveling today, so he's not on this segment with us, but he wanted me to tell you hello and congratulations on the book, and thanks for coming on our show.
Yeah, no worries, man. You guys are great guys, and I know things pop up. So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This book, I've been able to follow this story covering UFC for a number of years now, and I've kind of seen it come along with you, Maddox, always being there with your fights, and then culminating all the way up to the title win. I got to be there for that too. So let's kind of start there, because this young man, Maddox, you meet when he's 5 years old. He's stricken with leukemia. He's from your hometown. He's introduced to you by your brother. And maybe you could just give us a little more background there as far as how this relationship started.
Yeah, our relationship started with my brother reaching out to me. I was, amateur fighter. He's a kid in the hometown. He was early diagnosed with leukemia. My brother asked, hey, did you hear what's going on with the Maples? Kind of small community. Everybody knows everybody type of deal.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I haven't. He's like, I think you should reach out to them and show that you want to do a charity, a benefit, for your ticket sales and shirt sales, donate to the family, and show that, you can do this, that they're not doing this battle alone, hopefully get the community rallied around and, have a lot of support for them. And I remember reaching out to Nick on Facebook, Maddox's father, and saying, hey, man, this is what I like to do. I got a fight coming up. I'd like to get to know you guys and your story, and, donate, some money from my fight to your guys' cause, and help out with medical bills, or if you want to, wherever you could do, take them to Disney World or whatever they want to do with the money. Just to show that we were behind them. We're behind them with this fight. And 2 weeks later, Mick was like, once he's able to have visitors and be released from the hospital, we'll hit you up. And hit me up like about 2 or 3 weeks later, and I went down there, got to meet the family, and understand what they were going through. And I think that first, sat in my heart, about it, because I had a sister the same age, and I just kind of struck home, at first, kind of trying to put myself in their shoes and what they were kind of dealing with, the stories that they were telling me and how it all came about, him getting leukemia. And, I just knew from the first day that I met Maddox and looked into his eyes that he was going to beat this horrible disease that took over his body. And I told that to him. I was like, man, I have no worries in my mind that, no doubts in my mind that he's gonna beat this. And I got to know the family and know Maddox, and through the fighting and coming to the fights and them supporting me and me supporting them in their fight battle every day, taking the medicine and the chemo and just the battle they had to go through, that Maddox had to go through. And, it just, fight after fight, we grew closer and closer, and grew this bond, and Max started coming to my fights, and I was an amateur going to the pro ranks, and then, trying to make it to the UFC. And there's about 7 months left in his chemotherapy that he just wanted to give up, wanted to die, didn't want to do it anymore. And Nick, his father, reached out to me, called me out of the blue, and it was a call I always remember. My heart sank. I didn't know what to do or say. They said, we're losing Maddox. If anyone can change his little heart around, it'd be you. And he looks up to you so much. Cody, you have no idea. We need your help. We need your help. And I remember just kind of thinking, like, what am I going to say to this kid that's going to, turn it a little heart around to, keep wanting to take this medicine. It's violently sick it made him, and how horrible it made him feel. He just didn't want to do it anymore. And, I called him. I said, look, Maddox, I'm just going to be real with you. Go take your medicine. You're going to die. And I said, who's going to walk me out to all my fights? Who's going to be there for me? I said, I don't go to battle alone. You're not doing this battle alone. We're all here with you. I know it hurts and it sucks at times, but trust me, it's going to be all worth it. I said, you promise me that you'll, won't bitch or complain about taking your medicine. And I promise you I'll make it to the UFC and I'll take you to every fight with me. I don't care if it's in Brazil or in Australia. We'll make it happen and we'll win the world title together. And he said, okay, Cody. And he did. We obviously stayed in contact. I kept fighting throughout these next 7 months. And he called me after the 7th month on August 25th. And I remember this call from him, saying that, hey, I kept my end of the promise. It's your turn. And that lit a fire on me. I wasn't signed to the UFC. I was trying to work my way up, get signed, and ended up getting a fight a couple months after that. Kind of stayed focused in the gym and pushed for this next fights. And ended up fighting this kid in Canton Civic Center, knocking him out with a body shot. And Sean Shelby, hit me up later on Twitter asking who my manager was. And I was like, all right, I'm on the radar.
Yeah.
I got signed a few months later after that. So the series of events that, of the positivity that, Maddox was doing in the fight and the success that he was having with his battle motivated me to, stay focused and reach my promise, keep my promise, because he kept his promise. So it was just one of those things where we, leaned on each other when we really needed each other. And when good news, bad news, we were there for each other. And it was just a bond that really is indescribable. He's like a little brother to me. It's amazing the journey that we've been on the last 6 years since we set out to, we met each other and made this promise and had these curveballs thrown at you left and right. It wasn't always, good times. A lot of dark times, a lot of bad times without Maddox. We lost Maddox and we each had to pull down deep and stay focused on our dream.
Cody, that is such an incredible story, and I think what this book is going to give you the opportunity to do is to really tell the long-form version of that, because, I mean, you just articulated it in a nutshell, but, this is the kind of thing that we were all made aware of it. UFC fans were made aware of it when they saw Maddox with you on the big stage walking out to the fights and winning the title, but I think a lot of people probably are not going to realize until they read this book how far this goes back, and even the fact that, you commit to him to doing this, and you're not even in the UFC yet. I mean, it would be a big enough challenge if you were a top contender 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot, but you're not even in the promotion at this point. That's a hell of a promise you make there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it really kept me focused. Here's this little kid that looks up to me, and, I'm his hero, and from what his parents tell me, I looked at it vice versa. This kid was my hero, my inspiration, my motivation, my purpose to fight. I had a lot of purposes, but he was one of them. And he got me out of the dark time in my life when we met, and kept me, put my life in perspective. When you see someone going through that kind of horrible disease and battle for their life, it will change you. And I mean, it should change. It changed me and the things that I was doing in my life. So I'm forever grateful for him and the life lesson he bestowed on me at an early age. just finding the inner courage to fight for his life.
Well, I look at the time span, because you meet him when he's 5. He's got to be about 11 now. You meet him
12.
when you're 12. Okay,
now,
there you go. You meet him when you're 20. You're what? You're 26 yet? 25?
26.
26, okay.
Yep.
So it's interesting, the parallels in maturity, because, 5 to 12 is a huge leap in maturation, but so is 20 to 26. So I'm thinking that you really probably matured in a lot of ways right along with him, and actually right up to present day, you're a brand new father. I would think that this whole relationship that you had with him probably helped prepare you in some ways for being a new father. Am I wrong about that?
Oh, in tremendous ways. That's why I told him when we were in New York doing the press tour, and I told him, I had his eyes on me at that time where I needed to stay focused and someone looking up to me. Now I have my son's eyes that looks at me. I'm his world, you know what I mean? Yeah. He's my world, and I'm the provider, I'm the protector, I'm the father that's going to throw the first baseball to him, the football to him. So excited for all that, all those things that I wanted in my life. I get to share with my son, and definitely, my relationship with Maddox and what we endured and went through definitely got me, super prepared for fatherhood.
Do you think, Cody, that, because you also write in the book a lot about your own upbringing, having to grow up basically without a father being around, do you think that growing up a little rough that way in terms of not having the traditional family together also might have helped you appreciate what Maddox really needed when he needed it, as opposed to if you had kind of grown up with no problems or troubles, maybe it wouldn't have resonated so deeply with you?
Yeah, I think that everything happens for a reason. It was unfortunate circumstances that, this kid is fighting the horrible disease that was taking over his body. He had no choice but to fight. But I believe that while I was at my life and where he was at in his life, that we came into each other's life for a reason, a much greater purpose than we knew, at the time, at the early stages of our relationship and our bond that we built. I truly believe that we both saved each other's life in many different ways.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from an eyewitness account being there in the press room that night after you won the title, and Maddox came in, how full of life he looked. In fact, I told Justin Buchholz this that night when he came in. He not only had the gold belt over his shoulder, but he walked in with the Team Alpha Male Ladies Auxiliary. He had all the girls with him, and I told Justin, I said, Maddox looks like the youngest pimp in Las Vegas tonight with this gold title and all these ladies around him. This is a pretty good look for him.
Yeah, he wore the gold belt so well. I remember, having to do the media obligations after the fight, and he had that belt strapped over his shoulder, and I would, be getting interviewed by some MMA outlets or media outlets, and I would look over in the corner, and there was Maddox sitting there just staring at that belt, man, like it was everything to him, and it was, that's what he fought on, that's what he held on for, that was his day, that was his walk, that was his battle that, finally got recognition of, all right, this is mine, and he held on to that belt, and he just glowed with just so much life, and that was like such a rewarding night for me, not only because I fulfilled my dream of being a world champion, but also we kept our promise together, through it all, the ups and the downs, the adversity and the hardships, the peaks and valleys that the career and life gave us. And we stayed true to who we were, and we did it. Now,
is he going to be with you when you get a chance to get that belt back on August 4th, the rematch with Dillashaw?
He's in every aspect of my life. He's there. He's always going to be there. No matter what. It can be when he's 25. He's always be in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you go through something like that with someone, and with the bond that we have, and just as special as that kid is, man, it's just good to be. He's this positive influence, still to this day is uplifting to me, and just to see how happy he is and excited he is to be able to do this kind of stuff now with the book tour, and he's in a book and he's gonna, share his story. I think that, I'm excited. I was nervous at first, but the book came together, and I'm very excited for the feedback, and I just hope that people around the world can find inspiration, motivation for whatever they're going through in life. Just to keep battling, just to keep the faith, to keep the positivity, and because everyone has a story, and everyone has hardships in their life. It's about how you get through them and who you lean on, who you have there. So I hope they can just really, pull some things from our book and our story and our fight. Just keep fighting through it.
Well, that's fantastic. And before I let you go here, I do want to ask you a question about that rematch with Dillashaw, because now we got it set August 4th.
Richard, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You got me?
Yeah, kind of cutting out.
Oh, sorry, man. Yep. I do want to ask you one quick question before I let you go about that rematch, because we've got it set now for August 4th. And
I'm sorry, Richard, I cannot hear you.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, I can fix this in the edit. Are you good now?
Okay.
Yes,
sorry.
Sir. Yeah, let me reset that question again.
Okay.
Before I let you go, Cody, I do want to talk to you for a second, though, about that rematch with Dillashaw. We've got the date set, August 4th. And, I was there for the first fight, and, boy, there just wasn't anything wrong with that fight. I mean, obviously, you would like a different outcome, but, I mean, in terms of a back-and-forth war, one guy's got to win, one guy's got to lose, but that's the kind of fight that as soon as you see it conclude, you think, I want to see that again. I'd have thought the same thing had you won. I mean, there was just nothing wrong with it. So, we do a lot of analysis about, okay, rematches, how is anything going to be different? But I wonder with this fight, should anything be different, or should it just be the exact same kind of fight, but you want a different outcome?
Yeah, definitely a different outcome. My mental state's different. I'm healthy first and foremost. Health goes a huge part in fighting, and then directly to your mentality going into the fight. Your mental state. You get to go prepare yourself for battle, and I feel like everything's in a row, mind, body, and soul. I'm ready to go out there and recapture and reclaim my title and everything that he stole from me. I'm focused. I got my focus there. I have more motivation than ever to be a new father and to provide for him and put food on the table. So my motivation's there. My passion's always been there. And I'm healthy. So I'm excited for August 4th. It's going to be a different outcome. Super excited to get my title back and go in there and face TJ Dillashaw.
Yep, can't wait for that rematch. All right, last one for you, Cody, and this is just because I've always wondered this. When you joined Team Alpha Male, was it decided that you and Andre Feely would get all the tattoos for everybody? Because that is a very all-or-nothing equation with that Team Alpha Male, the two of you compared to the other guys. That's
hilarious. Yeah, I was like, he's got me beat now. He's been able to sit through the pain and do that. I'm real picky, when I make sure that what I get on me is some good ass work. But we're covered in tattoos, and actually a lot of the team is changing. They went from a clean cut, gentlemen, dapper scrapper, fighters to where it's like a lot of the guys, we're all tatted up and still good looking, but we have the little edgy look to us.
That might be the Garbrandt influence right there.
Maybe. I think it's something. Yeah, it's something for sure.
The book is called The Pact. Go out and grab the book. You're going to love this story. I mean, it really was an amazing one to cover just from a media perspective, knowing what I knew about it. But there is a whole lot more layers to this that Cody is able to tell for the first time through this brand new book, The Pact. So, Cody, thanks for the time, man. And we'll keep an eye on everything leading up to that rematch with Dillashaw, and I'll be seeing you at the fight, okay?
Hey, man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the time. I'll see you soon.